Y'all, welcome to Late Night Podcast with Bridget and Holly. I'm your host, Holly.
And I'm your host, Bridget.
And tonight we are doing a very special episode because, as most of you know, and if you don't, this month is Domestic Violence Awareness. And we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing an interview with Bridget on this topic. And before we get to talking, I want to start by saying that it's not just women; it is men as well. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Domestic violence affects approximately 10 million people in the United States each year. So, one thing that I want to stress to y'all, if you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, please tell somebody because help is available. And we have the National Domestic Hotline number, and we're going to put it in the description of the video once we're done. But it's 1-800-799-7233. We also want to tell you that this interview is going to be very detailed. Bridget's going to talk about some traumatic things that has happened. If you have any trigger warnings with this, we don't recommend you watching it. Now, we're doing this to help people because you never know who is sharing the same or going through the same thing that she went through. So this is just awareness to let you know there's help out there and everything like that. And I am extremely proud of Bridget for coming on our podcast and sharing this with y'all. It is hard to hear, but if you know Bridget today, a lot of you who follow her see how happy she is. She's married to an amazing man, got beautiful children, and she's living her life. She didn't let this hold her down. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and before we get started with the interview, I want Bridget to say a few things to you guys and explain some stuff as well.
Yeah. So first of all, you guys, we want you to make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more shows like these. We do try to do shows that are upbeat, happy, make you smile. But again, just like Holly said, this may be triggering to some people, especially if you've went through it or you're going through it presently. So if talking about, physical, mental, and emotional abuse is something that is triggering for you, you definitely do not want to watch this podcast show. Maybe save it and come back later if you think you might be ready. But if it's something that's going to put you in an unwelcomed emotional or mental state, we do not want that. That's not the reason for this. It's actually to help people. So if you think it might be triggering, please do not watch the show. But I also want to explain to y'all that domestic violence is generally thought of as physical, okay, but it can be emotional or mental as well. But we're going to talk about more. We're going to hit on all the aspects, but the physical is going to be the one that we talk about the most.
Exactly. Um, a lot of people, when you say what springs to mind when you hear the word violence, you would think most people would say like, war or fighting, but it's not. It's domestic violence. That's the first thing that pops in people's head when you hear the word violence. I want to start
Mm-hmm.
off by saying it is not okay for a man to hit a woman. It is not okay for a woman to hit a man, no matter what the case is. Nobody deserves to go through that at all. Um, I want to start off, Bridget, with um, when you first got with him. How long into the relationship was it before the abuse started? And was it all the time in the beginning, or did it just like start off as once in a while, leading to more violence every day?
Right. Well, believe it or not, the the physical abuse it was verbal and physical and emotional and mental. I mean, I went through all of them, but the actual physical abuse started pretty early in the relationship. I can't give you an exact time frame. I was with him. I was married to him for 10 years, and we had started dating in about 87, 88, and we got married in 90, I think it was. And we got married in 90, yeah, and we stayed married until 97. So I was with him about 10 years. And I would say it wasn't but a few months into the relationship. And the bad thing was I had my warnings cuz he beat his mom and his dad too. And I saw
Wow.
that. And I should have left then because he was physically abusive to them. They were already older. They had other grown children that were in their, late 20s, early 30s, and they were in their 50s. She was in her late 40s, early 50s when she had my husband, or late 40s, I think. So by the time all this was going on, she was in her 50s, early 60s. And I was having to witness him beat on his parents like that. So and I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but you're young, you're dumb, and anytime that somebody is physical like that, they always end with, "I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. I don't know what happened." Blah blah
Hmm.
blah blah blah, and you tend to forgive. You tend to forgive it. I feel like my hair is sticking up right there.
Now,
Sorry.
what when he would do that to his mom and stuff? Why did they never press charges or did anything when he did that?
No. No,
Wow.
because no, and the thing is, the law, every Sunday we would go over there and eat, and his mom would cook, and she cooked a wonderful Sunday dinner for everybody. But it would, 9 times out of 10, it would end up with the law being called over there, and it was because of him. And I remember one incident when we were just dating early on, and he was hitting it. It went from the house to out on the porch, and then she was trying to get him off of me. Leave her alone, leave her alone. And they had a deck that was probably about 6 to 8 feet off the ground, and then you got to go over the railing. You know what I'm saying, to hit the ground. Well, I remember I was just trying to get him off over and leave her alone, and she don't deserve this. And he literally picked me up, put me over his head, and slung me off that balcony. And I hit the ground, and I felt, it hit me like that. And I laid there for the longest time, and I could just hear it was ringing in my ears, and I could hear his mama saying, "You killed her! You killed her!" She thought I was dead falling that far.
Oh my
But I was
God.
literally like, yeah, I was just laying there, and I didn't even know if I could move at that point. Um, and so I did get up, and luckily I was young. You do that shit to me now, I'd probably be broken. But yeah, I went through that, and I remember getting up, and I remember wanting to go home. And oh my God, the stories I have. But I remember wanting to go home, and he stopped me and tried to talk to me, and he told me, "I don't know what happened. I just flipped. You was on me, she was on me, and just please don't." And then he'll go into crying, and then me, because I didn't want to see him cry or be hurt. I was like, "It's okay, we'll get through it." Da da da. And I forgave him over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
I can't believe you took a fall like that and had no injuries whatsoever. I mean, that really could have killed you. You could have snapped your neck,
Yeah.
broke your back, become
Yep.
paralyzed. That
Yep.
I'm really shocked that you were able to get up and walk away from that.
Yep.
Um, when when he would do these attacks, how long would they usually last for? When he would do this?
Well, it's not long. I mean, it's like just like that. That happened. Well, how long did that take to get thrown off the balcony and then him apologize? What, in the span of less than 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Um, but it's one of those things. I don't know. It's just one of those things you just kind of. I don't think it. I mean, if you're thinking it went on for days or anything like that, no. It was just things he did, and I think that it takes somebody really disturbed and almost evil to do things like that. And the one
it
time I would
does.
tell you, Yeah, the one time I'll tell you that I saw evil in his eyes, that it actually, like, you would think I'd be scared through all of these, and I wasn't scared of him. I knew, um, I knew in my mind, I was thinking deep down inside, he's a good person. He's just doing bad things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the one time I saw evil was one time we went to Carowinds, had a wonderful day. Went to Carowinds, um, came home from Carowinds, and his mom had actually kicked him out, and me and my dad took him in. And I remember I was in my bedroom, and he was in there with me, and we had separate beds. And my dad made us have twin beds that were separate in the same room. God forbid, God bless my dad. He thought because he did that, that's all he needed to do, you know.
And everything will be
Um,
fine.
yeah, yeah, but now I was like 17 at the time. It wasn't like I was a little bitty child. So 17 might could have been 18, but anyhow, I'll never forget that we came home from Carowinds, and I don't know what was said, but I remember taking off my jewelry, and I had a sunburn that day, and something was said to him, or something, where he got mad. He spun me around, threw me on the bed, got on top of me, and took a knife and put it to my neck. And
Oh my
pressed and pressed.
God.
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, he pressed and pressed and pressed hard. And when I looked in his eyes, they were black. They were black as coal. And he had dark brown eyes anyway, but they were so dark. And he said to me, he said, "You know what I want to do right now?" He said, "I want to slit your throat and piss down your neck." And he
Oh
said,
my
and he said,
God.
and he said, "Just watch you bleed out." And I mean, I laid there, and he pressed harder and harder. And have you ever took a knife and pressed it on your skin? Not cut, but you pressed so hard when you lift it up, you had little blood beads. I had
Uh-uh.
them all across my neck. I had them all across my neck, and I looked in his eyes when he did that, and I said, "Do it." I said, "Do it." That's what I told him. And I laid there for a minute, and he stared at me and I stared at him, and I could just feel tears rolling out of my eyes and down my face and stuff. And he said, "Yeah, you tried to sound tough." He said, "But I see that tear, you chicken shit bitch." And he got up off of me, and he just left me alone. And I sat there, and I felt so dead inside. You know what I'm saying? I just felt like,
Yeah.
why am I going? I always question, why I went through the things I went through, but I fucking stayed. I stayed. I just stayed.
Um, so were there like certain things that seemed to trigger him, and what I mean by this question is not, you know, that you did anything, but just in general, like if he had a bad day at work, or like something, social happened, or environmental, were there things that would just set him off, even just normal conversations?
Yeah. I mean, it would usually be a hard day at work, or money, or I think he was just an evil person. And I think that if just like you and I think life is stressful. Just overall, in general, life is stressful. And I think that when life would get stressful for him, I was his outlet to come home, and to the least little things that be said, or the least little thing be done. I mean, we'd like any other couple, we'd argue. And so it never was just him bicker, me bicker. It was him bicker, me bicker, him whip my ass. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
basically how it ended up. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think happened to him, like in his childhood growing up, to make him like this? Because they always say that it's either they watch their parent do it, so then they do it, or just like, I mean, it's really a demented thing, in my opinion, to do,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
someone. So do you know, like, did something happen to him when he was little, or did he just have some type of trauma, or did he get abused in some way? It doesn't make
No,
it
I
right,
mean,
but
right.
just
No,
was
because
wondering
he,
if
like
anything
I said,
happened.
he was the baby. So they pampered him. I mean, his older sisters loved on him. His mom and dad loved on him. Now his dad was an alcoholic. I don't know if that had something to do with it, but I know he had evil in him even when he was younger, because one day
Wow.
when I was going through paperwork, uh when he was moving, there was some paperwork because he was a juvenile delinquent. He had been in and out of trouble, and man, when my dad found out I was dating him, and he was in Swananoa, which is a juvenile facility for people under the age of 18 that need to be in jail but they're not in jail, so they go up there.
Yeah.
And when my dad found out I was dating him, my dad was like, "Bridget, what are you doing? Why? What are you?" He said, "There's too many people out here. Why are you with somebody like that?" I'm like, "Oh, Daddy, I love him." Da 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 da. But and my dad was like, he said, "I'm just telling you. I mean, you need to think twice about this." And I didn't, I had my mind made up. And my dad knew he couldn't deter me, you know what I'm saying? So my dad just said, "Well, if he's not for you, you'll learn he's not for you." And my dad did not know. He did not know that I went through all this until one time when we were fighting. And I told you he'd lived with me, and what had happened was the house next to my dad came open for rent. My dad talked to his landlord and said, "Hey, I've got y'all where you can move out over there if that's what you want to do." Because I
Mhm.
had quit school at 16, and so I was working a full. Because my dad, when I went and told him I was going to quit school, he said, "Listen, if you quit, you got to get a full-time job. You're going to take care of yourself. If you want to be an adult, you're going to be an adult." And I said, "Okay." So I did. So I was already working full time. He was working full time. And so we moved out. And so when we moved out, we didn't have no furniture. I had egg crates for tables. I had lawn chairs for furniture. And we didn't have a stove or anything. So I used a hot plate. And I don't know if you know what a hot plate is. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So I had two burners. So I was really excited about cooking supper for us in our new house. And so I wanted to cook. So I was cooking like meat, pork chops, mashed potatoes, corn. I had several different things going, but because I only had two burners, I couldn't cook with two things at a time. So I cooked the
Oh.
pork chops first. I cooked them in the corn first. Took the corn off. Was doing the mashed potatoes and had to wait for the potatoes, water to boil, and was doing the mashed potatoes because I didn't do real ones. I just did instant ones. And I remember taking the food to him, and he was sitting in one of the lawn chairs, and I handed him his plate, and he went to eat, and one of the things was cooler because it had set aside. And the minute he took a bite, he went, "Pugh," and he spit it out, and he said, "This shit's cold." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, we just got the hot plate in there, and I said, "I was trying to cook more than one vegetable." And he said, "No, this shit's cold." He took it and he threw it. He threw it. And so I said, "Oh my God, why did you do that?" And so I get down and I'm on my hands and knees cleaning the food up, scraping it up with a rag. And he said, he kicked me in the back, and I hit the floor, and he took me in the back of my head and he just raked it in the food. He said, "No, you're going to clean it up like this." And he raked it in the food, and I had food all over me, and I
Oh.
started crying. I started crying, and I remember getting up and running out the door and running to my dad's house because I knew I'm getting ready to take another damn ass whipping. So, and
Right.
this was after being beat for many years. So I run next door to my dad's house, and I told my dad, here he is sitting there in his recliner watching TV. And he gets up and he says, "Well, let's just go talk to him. What's going on?" Because Dad's thinking this is the first time, and he's thinking maybe just something I said or did, and maybe he just had a bad day, and it wasn't like it was being portrayed. You know what I'm saying? Like Dad was like
Yeah.
me. He's devil's advocate. He said, "I'm gonna listen to both sides of the story." So my dad goes over there and just walks in the door, and he said, at the time, my husband's name, I'm not gonna say it on here. He said, "What's going on?" And about that time, he pulled a butterfly knife on my dad. And he said, "Don't come near me." He said, "I'll stab you." And my dad looked at him. He said, "Oh, we going to use weapons? Okay, we'll get weapons." And so he goes over and gets his shotgun. And he comes back, and I'm begging Daddy the whole time, "Daddy, please don't do that," because I'm thinking he's going to shoot him. And so we get back over there, and about that time, my dad says, "Well, if you got a weapon, I'm gonna have a weapon." But my dad had the gun down, and so about that time, Scott, mm, mm, About said the name, can't say that. So he went to swing the knife at my dad, and my dad went to stop him, and it stabbed him through his hand. And when it did, when it stabbed him through his hand, my dad picked up the gun, lifted it up, grabbed the barrel and the butt, and went pap like that, and knocked him upside his head, and split his head wide open down to his nose.
Oh, wow.
And oh, that freaked me out. And so then Dad looked at me and he goes, "Go get the car. We're going to take him to the hospital." He said, "And then he's going to jail." And so I didn't even know my dad had been stabbed at that point. And so I go get the car and I pull it around. And so Dad says, "Get in the passenger seat." So I got in the passenger seat. My him at the time, I don't know if he was married at the time or I was not married yet. Can you believe I married him after something like this? So anyhow, he gets in the back seat. We take him to the hospital, and at the hospital, when we're sitting there and he's getting, fixed the stitches and everything, we're telling him everything that happened, and my dad was telling him, yes, we want him arrested. I noticed my dad had a rag around his hand, and I said, and there was blood on it. And I said, "Are you cut?" And he said, "I am." And I said, "How bad?" And he said, "I don't know, and I don't want to look." And so I said, "Daddy, let me see." And so when I opened it up, you could see the hole went all the way through his hand.
Oh,
And
God.
I said, Daddy, you need stitches. And he said, "No, I don't need nothing. Be quiet." And so he wouldn't let me get him help. And so I was quiet. And then I was like sad for my dad that I brought him into this. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so then um he ends up, they did arrest my husband at the time, and they took him to jail, and I go back home with my dad. And then the next day, I know his parents had called and said, "You're going to get him out of jail, and y'all are going to pay for this," and da 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 da. My dad says, "You're lucky he's still alive." He said, "If I'd had my
Exactly.
way," he said, "You're lucky he's alive." He said, "So you pay to get him out." So while I was at work, he calls me and he gives me the whole "I'm so sorry" stop story. Da 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 da. When I went back home and I telling my dad, that I really wanted to work it out, blah blah blah. My dad he was like, "Oh my God," and he said, "You do
Oh,
know that men that do that don't stop doing that." And I said, "I think he will. I think he will. I think this is a lesson learned." Blah blah blah. And so I end up taking him back, and my dad talks to him and he tells him, he said, "I just want to let you know, if you ever lay another hand on my daughter," he said, "I will hunt you down like the dog you are." And he said, "I'll make it my job to make your life miserable." But I still continued to go through beatings way beyond that. But I just never told my dad again. My dad didn't
and
know.
that was actually going to be my next question was going to be, did you tell anyone, and if so, when, and how long did you go through it before you finally told somebody? So with you telling after your dad witnessed that and y'all went through that and you went back, how much longer did you continue to go to hide that abuse?
Well, that was probably in 90 when that happened, and we didn't separate till 97, so 7 more years.
That was earlier on in the relationship when that happened. Um,
Hmm.
so
And
when
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
oh,
Besides
no,
my
no, no,
dad, that
you're good.
friends, some of my friends could kind of tell or kind of knew. I'll tell you an incident where we lived in that same house, and you asked me about the frequency. So I'll tell you that it was more in the beginning, and the longer we was together, the less it became. Oddly enough, it went from every day to once a week to once a month to when we finally split up, it might have just been a once every 3 or 4 month thing. You know what I'm saying? So it
Really,
did improve. Oddly enough, it did improve. But still, even to get hit once every 3 or 4 months is still too much. But um,
it is.
when I was pregnant with my oldest son, I'd set him off one day, and he started threatening to kill me and my unborn child. So I get out of the house and I'm going towards my neighbor's house, who was my best friend at the time, and he pushed me down. And when he pushed me down, once he got me down, he started kicking me in my stomach, and I remember covering my stomach and drawing up my legs
Mm,
to protect my child. And my neighbor across the street saw it, and she come running out, and told him, leave her alone, leave her alone. And she picked me up and took me to her house. And she kept saying, was you all right? Are you all right? Are y'all, you want me to call the law? You want me to do that? And I said, no, no, no. And all he was doing was standing outside her house screaming and fussing and cussing and all this stuff. And I was inside and I was just terrified to go back out. And a lot of people will ask you, did you ever fight back? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Before I was pregnant, oh, yeah, I fought back. And I'm a strong woman, but you're no woman is a match for a man. And the more I fought back, the worse it got. So I just quit fighting back because
Right.
then it would be less of a beating if I just didn't fight back.
Yeah, because they get the strength that they have 9 out of 10 times overpowers us. Um, so going through that, did you struggle with the emotions of thinking that it was your fault, and if so, what made you feel that way?
So going back to that time, I would think to myself, what am I doing to make him do this? Or what am I doing to set him off? But then there was that logical sense of me that knew this is not right. And everybody don't go through this. And this is not how relationships should go. So I knew that it was more something wrong with him than it was me. And especially, like I said, having seen him beat his parents, I knew that this guy's just kind of messed up. And I will tell you another situation where I knew he was messed up. I was telling you that I was going through paperwork where we moved out. And
Uh-huh.
I come across this paperwork where he had set a dog on fire that was alive. And he was charged
Oh
for that.
my God.
hmm And out of all the things I'd ever learned about him, that hurt me the worst because I love animals, and that really hurt
Yeah,
me. And he claimed, "Oh, I took the fall for somebody. I didn't do that." But the longer I was with him, the more I realized you the one that did that. You the
he
one that
did
did
it.
that.
He did it, and just tried to make it out like he didn't.
Yep.
So and the reason also too I asked that question is because I've never been through domestic violence, but I have seen it happen. With people that I know that just went through it and stuff. And a lot of people do struggle with what did I do? What am I doing wrong? What have I done to make this happen? And that's why I wanted to ask if you had struggled with that, because it's nothing that you've done. It's nothing at
Mm,
all. It's all them. But they're gonna blame you and say, "Why did you make me do this? Why are you? It's your fault that I'm this way." And
yeah.
it's just a mental game that they're playing on you. To clear their conscience, that giving them validation that they had the right to hit you, which they did not. Um,
Right.
what made you stay as long as you did? I know you loved him, but when it would happen and stuff, did you think in your head like, okay, I'm gonna leave? I want to go, but and you wouldn't.
hmm
But what made you stay as long as you did?
Several things. For one, um, I didn't want to have to go back home. Um, Not that my home life was bad or anything, but I think it's like anybody else. And when you move out, the last thing you want to do is have to run back home and go back to
Exactly.
where you're living with your parents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to go back home. Financially, I couldn't afford to get out of it. Financially, I was in a situation where I didn't have the money to start over. The fact that, and this sounds horrible to say, but the fact that I was pregnant and I did not want, was raised without a mom. Okay. And I did not want the fact that I had fucked up and made a bad choice in a partner. I didn't want to take that father away from my child. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wanted my child to have both parents. I didn't want
You
to have
wanted a
my
complete
children.
family.
Yeah, I didn't want them to have to live without a dad like I had to live without a mom. And so I tried to think of them, but at the time, like I said, I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. In your 20s, you don't realize that that kind of role model is not what you want for your kids. You know what I'm saying? That's not,
Exactly.
but yeah. but I had high hopes that even though he was a shitty boyfriend, shitty husband, that he wouldn't be a shitty father. But he ended up being a shitty father too. You know what I'm saying? So, uh, those were my reasons, and the fact, like I said, I loved him, and the fact that you think to yourself, I know this sounds crazy to say, but he was a nice looking guy. I kept thinking to myself, if we split up, I'll be alone. I won't be able to find anybody else. And they make you believe
Right.
that. They make you believe that. And I
They
and I
do.
knew he
Yeah.
was a nice looking guy, and I thought, what if I can't find anybody, like him, and and cute, and you know, I don't know. It's just weird shit that goes through your mind. You're young, you're dumb, and you're vulnerable. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
then they, with the mental and physical abuse, they make you feel less worthy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
What would you say was the defining moment when you finally said enough is enough?
I never did. He left me. I didn't leave him.
Really?
Really.
I did not know that.
Hmm. I had laid in bed. It was a prayer answered, because probably for the last 3 years we were together, my nightly prayer was, I said, God, please let him find somebody else, cheat on me, and
I
leave me
do.
for her. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do
You
remember
remember
you.
that?
Not trying to interrupt you, but now that you're telling it, oh wait, I do. They don't know this, but I do remember that now. But go ahead, I remember that now.
Yeah. So I did. Every night I prayed that. I said, God, just let somebody else catch his eye and let him leave. Because my thing was, if I left, he was going to hunt me down. And my thing, if I left, I wouldn't get to live a peaceful life. You know what I'm saying? That he would
Did
just
he
torment
threaten you
me.
with that?
Oh, yeah.
That if you ever
Oh,
left, that
yeah.
he a typical line that
Hmm.
they all say too. That yeah.
Yeah. He said, you think if you left me, you was ever going to be happy? I'll make sure you're not. And he always had me worried about my children. And like I said, everybody will tell you, if you're with somebody like that, they're like, how you gonna be with somebody like that? Because they're gonna grow up beat on your kids. Oddly enough, he knew. Like, I had my limits, and he knew. I told him. I told him point blank, you fuck with my kids, I will kill you in your sleep. Dead in your sleep. You don't touch my kids. And he never did. But one time, when I started getting stronger and he would try to do things to trigger me, I would just sit there and ignore him. You know what I'm saying? I'd just sit there and I remember I was humming and rocking my youngest son, and I was rocking him and humming, and he said, listen to me. I said, listen to me. And I just kept rocking and humming. And he grabbed my son and held him up by his ankle, and when he did, I stood up and he said, oh, I got your attention now, don't I? Yeah, bitch, I got your attention now. And
Wow.
I said, don't you hurt him. I said, I'm telling you now, don't you hurt him. And I said, you give me my child. He said, oh, I'll give him to you, all right. And he slung him at me, and I caught him. And I looked at him and I caught him, and I said, if you ever touch another hair on my kid's head, I said, you won't be alive tomorrow. And when I said that, I said it with fire in my eyes, and he knew. And he looked at me, and I could tell he was kind of like, because I'd never done that before. From that day forward, he never touched my child. Unless normal dad discipline, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that,
Yeah.
and smack his hands because he was trying to touch a socket or something. But never again was it in an abusive way towards my kids. But now I can't say if we would have stayed together that he wouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? But that would have been
Yeah.
my breaking moment. I would have been
Right.
out of there. I'd have been gone. You don't touch my kids.
Exactly. And I was gonna ask that too. Did there ever come a time and point in the relationship where he did, abuse the kids and hit them and stuff? Um, and that is shocking because, like you said, in most domestic violence cases, is that it's with the kids as well. They're
Right.
it's not just the wife or the husband. It's with the kids. How would you say with all of this? How has this affected you and changed you?
It's made me stronger. Oddly enough, it's made me. Now, some women, it doesn't do that. Some women, it really messes them up, and they never get their self worth back. but my daddy did raise me strong, and my dad, he come out of the army, and he had PTSD, and he knew that this life was ugly, and he built me for a tough life. He built me to withstand things. And so I knew coming out of this I was a victim. I knew coming out of this that this wasn't my fault. I never let it define me. I picked up the pieces, but it was strange because even through the domestic violence, I could get beat on a Tuesday night and walk out my door on Wednesday morning and smile at people and greet them and give them hugs and
And
love
I would
and
have never
kindness.
known it.
They didn't. They never knew. Because when
Never
he would
known.
beat me, it would be in the back of my head. It would be my back. It would be twisting my arm. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be like in my face. He knew better because he knew if my daddy ever saw that, it would be bad
Oh,
news for
he
him.
would have been a goner. He would have been a
Yeah.
goner. Um,
And one time I did get a bruise on my face. Now you're going to be interested to hear this story. He did hit me in the face where he was hitting and swinging around the back of my head, and I went to turn. He caught me in the eye. Well, at the time, I know y'all have heard me tell you that my husband now used to be married to my best friend, and we were best friends then. And I used to bowl. My husband now, I used to bowl with him when he was married to my best friend. And so we had to bowl on a Saturday when I had that black eye, and I went and I met him at Kmart before we went to the bowling alley. And when I walked through the door and I walked up to them, my best friend Shelly looked at me. She went, oh, and she goes, "What happened to your eye?" And Ronnie looked and he goes, "He hit you, didn't he? He hit you, didn't he?" He said, "I will whip his ass." And he goes out the door. And me and Shelly both stopped him. I said, "No, no, 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 he didn't hit me." I said, "I did it at work. I opened up a door. It was a door of a machine I was working on. He did it. I did it at work." And he looked at me and he goes, "You're lying." And I said, "I'm not lying. I'm not lying. I'm not." But he was going to kick his ass then. You know what I'm
oh
saying? So
wow.
yeah, but I remember they asked me then, and I covered up, and I was a convincing liar. But I remember he told me that he told me he went back to Shelly and told her. He said, "I believe he hit her, and she's covering up for him." And Shelly said, "I don't know. I think Bridget would tell you the truth, but I didn't."
Now, did Shelley and them know at all, or not until it was over? You came clean and told them what was going on, or did
They
you?
knew they knew he had a temper, and they knew he was verbally abusive. You know what I'm saying? They had witnessed that. And they had seen him do things like shove me or push me out of the way or get up in my face, but they'd never seen him actually physically hit me.
Mm-hmm.
I have the type of friends, if they would have saw that, they would have intervened. They wouldn't have just stood by.
They would have all come and got you, got you and the kids,
Mm-hmm.
and brought you home. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so would you going through all this, and because after him, how long before you got into your next relationship? Like, was your trust in men just like completely torn down? Did it take
Mm-mm.
you a while to learn to trust men again?
No. We broke up on December the 10th. Ronnie and Shelley separated on December the 3rd of 1997. She left him for his best friend. Okay. Me and my husband split up on December the 10th. He left me for a woman that he worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And Ronnie and I got together on December 21st, 11 days later.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That was just a relationship that was meant to be, though. Because look at y'all now.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all been together for how
Yeah.
long now?
Since December 21st, 1997.
Yeah, so,
So, so
God,
December
20 something
21st
years?
this year will be 26 years. Yeah.
26 years.
Yeah. But see, he
Oh,
told me he had a crush on me. He had a crush on me in school too, and I didn't know that.
he did.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's so
Hmm.
weird, that things and the hell that you sometimes have to go through to get where you really need to be in life. And it sucks that,
Yeah.
it's sad and it hurts my heart that you had to go through such violence and stuff to get to your soulmate. Because I know everybody's
Right.
like, there's God has a plan for you, and it's all in the works and stuff. And then you wonder, like, why did I have to go through this to get to here? And sometimes you just
Mm-hmm.
won't never know the answer to that, and it's
Mm-mm.
hard. Um, what would you say were your healing steps?
Get it? Well, the breakup, the breakup was the beginning of my healing. Um, Knowing that it was behind me, I felt safe with Ronnie. I felt safe that I knew. See, you said God that does weird things and stuff, and I think God did that because when my first husband left me, for that other girl, if I would have stayed single 3 and 4 months and then they ended up having problems and he wanted to come back, he would have come back and started threatening me and making my life a living hell. To I'd have probably let him back in. But
Yeah.
he knew with Ronnie here that that wasn't going to happen. He knew that with him in my life that that wasn't going to take place. And they had got into it. They'd got into a fight when we first got together. That was a big mess. And
Oh wow.
but but he pretty much because of that, I think God put Ronnie in my life at that time because he would have continued to torment me.
And
But
he's your
because Ronnie was
protector.
in my life, yep, he left me alone. He didn't. I mean, I had little spats with him, and he was supposed to come get the boys here and there, and he never did show up half the time, and and so finally, I just he just got to where he just disappeared completely, which was fine with me. But
So Mr. Ronnie was your knight
because
in shining armor, pretty much.
that's it, yeah, yeah,
Oh.
definitely.
So us going through this interview, I know it's been hard you having to talk about these things, and I know you're doing it to help other females and or men to come forward. Don't just sit there and take it. There's help. You are worth more than that. Was it hard, difficult for you to come forward today and share this on our podcast?
No, no,
No.
because like I said, I think I have it in my mind that I was a victim. And you have to understand, I lived through that for 10 years. And to me, I'm so glad it's over and it's behind me. I don't mind sharing it because I know how I felt at the time. I mean, just I've only touched the tip of the iceberg of some of the things that I went through. I remember he didn't like to work good, and I remember that every morning I would have to throw water on him to get him to get up and go to work. And I had my son Brandon, who was 3. I had my son Wesley, who was he's about 3.5, and I had my son Wes, who was 6 months old. And even in the winter, I would take Brandon and set him on my back steps. I would take Wesley and put him in a car carrier and put him on the back porch at the bottom of the steps. I would go in there and throw water on my husband, run out the back door, grab both of the kids, and run to the woods and hide till he went to work because I knew if he got a hold of me, he would beat me.
Oh
And
wow.
so I would get the kids and run and hide in the woods. And then he would straggle into work and we would sit there in the cold. And I had gotten to where I put blankets in the woods because I would cover them up with blankets to keep us warm until he'd go to work.
He wouldn't come
And
looking for you.
so, no, mm-mm, no, he would end up just going to work. And so I went through hell. I'm just telling you, I went through hell. So much
Yeah, you
hell.
did, because I couldn't imagine doing that. Like, you had your routine that sounds like down pat.
It does.
Getting them ready
I
in the
did.
morning and running to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
how long would y'all have to stay out there in the woods for?
Sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half because he'd lay in there and go to sleep, and then just get up and go when he was ready to go. It really just varied. You never knew, and so I would just sit out there and wrap the kids up in blankets, and I would sit there in the cold and snuggle them until he left, so I could go back in my house.
Would he ever say anything when he came home from you doing that?
No, I mean he would laugh about it in when that's over, and he'd tell me he'd laugh about it at first. Then that night he'd say, "Don't you do that shit again tomorrow," and then I'd be like, I won't." And then if the next day or two he might get up good, but then the third or fourth day he wouldn't want to get up, and I knew he had to get up to go to work because at the time I wasn't working. I had two kids, and he was the only thing that was keeping us afloat, and
Yeah.
so I knew he had to work, and so I'd do it again, and I'd take the kids out, and because like I said, I never really, even though I knew he wouldn't hurt. I mean, I told him not to hurt the kids. I never took a chance. I never took a chance
Yeah.
of him being able to, especially
Had
when I
he
knew he would have been mad.
had he ever hit you in front of the kids before? Did they
Oh,
ever see?
oh yeah,
Did
oh
they
yeah. But they
remember
were
any of it?
no, because when we split up, Wesley was 3 and Brandon was 7. And like I said, remember I told you it had gotten less and less.
Yeah.
So I don't think the boys at 4 and 7. At 7 he might have realized, but if you ask my son now, he don't remember any of that.
He doesn't remember anything.
Um, no, but now my son will tell you, and I would have hated to see the day once Brandon got about 16 or 17. Had he lived through that,
Brandon
I
would have beat
think
the hell out of him.
it would have been over, son. It would have been
It would
over
have.
because I promise you, even now to this day, I mean, if somebody tried to hurt me, Brandon would take a bullet for me. I'm telling
Yeah.
you. I mean, I've always said out of all my kids, if any of my, mother is always willing to sacrifice her life for her children in a
Right.
heartbeat. That's the child that would die for me. He's the one that would
Oh,
would kill for me. Hmm.
that's Brandon. What? So coming to the end of the interview, I want to ask you what suggestions and advice do you have to make it safer for victims to come forward? What can you stress to any domestic violence person, male or female, just the best advice that you could give them to help them?
I got great advice. Okay, and the number one advice is don't do like me and feel like because financially you don't have it, you're trapped. Don't do like me and stay quiet. Talk to somebody. Get with your friends and family and come up with a game plan to get you in a better situation. Make sure that when you do leave, you plan it out. You plan your escape. You don't leave any T's uncrossed, any I's undotted. You make sure you get all that done. And I suggest that all women, that are going through this, try to get you some financial plan in place, but don't let finances be the reason you don't leave. Um, like I said, talk to somebody, get your friends and family involved. And I know the thing is, yeah, but you need to tell your friends and family. This was my biggest fear. If I went to my dad and told him that, he would get emotional and react right away. And that's what families want to do. But you need
Yeah.
to tell your family, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to talk to you about something. But I don't want you to react in emotion. I want you to help me in a thought out, calculated way. Do not react emotionally, and then talk to your family about it, because a lot of people who live in domestic violence, there's the last thing you want to tell somebody that lives in that way, well, just leave, just leave. It's not that easy. They need a plan. They need an exit, and they need to feel safe in that exit, and they can't feel safe if they're in an emotional abusive situation and you react emotionally too. Then
Right.
they feel
It
like
doesn't
they're just
help.
between a rock and a hard place, right?
Mm-hmm.
um but don't stay. Don't stay for no reasons of I can't afford to leave. Don't stay for any reasons that I can't tell nobody, because you can. And there are resources out there that will help women in situations like that. But you know what was the bad thing was, when I called those resources, I would always say, I'm in a bad situation and I need out, and I've got two kids and da 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 da, and they would tell me, well, you got to join the waiting list. You got to join
You
the
know,
waiting
that was
list.
gonna I was gonna ask you that what if they they call these numbers and they're like, we don't have any room for you, and then you don't have a family member that would or could take you in. What would your next step of advice be for them if you can't get into a shelter or get in with a family member? What would you say? What would you do?
Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted actual housing to where they'd put me in an apartment, you know what I'm saying? Like a income based apartment, and they wanted to put me in a shelter. And I didn't want to go in a situation where I was sleeping me and my children was sleeping on cots with other women and children right beside it. And I know that sounds, why wouldn't you want that? You know what I'm saying? But I didn't want that for me or for them. And so, I stayed. But if you have nowhere to turn, there is a shelter that will take you in. You might not get that apartment you're wanting or that house that you're wanting to get into with you and your kids, but there are shelters that will take you in. And I don't think shelters turn a battered woman away. I've never
Are they
heard of
not
that.
okay?
You
I didn't
you
know
just
if they
have to
would
not
that.
be prideful like me. I was prideful. I didn't want to go in that situation.
But that's
So my
understandable too,
pride
though,
was
because you're taking, even though you're in a bad situation, you're taking you and your kids from the only home they've known to somewhere where you're just
that's
out of
right.
your element and uncomfortable. You got to share a bathroom with all these people and take turns, trying to get into the shower, and you're grateful for everything that they do, but it's still different when you're in your very own home. So I can
Right.
understand you feeling that way and not wanting to do it. And I think that plays a big role too in a lot of people who go through domestic violence. They don't want to leave, and because it
That's
makes
it.
you probably feel homeless, is what it makes you feel like,
Yeah.
because you're leaving your home to
Yeah.
go stay at a shelter where nothing is there but you and what little few things you could bring.
Yeah. And I just didn't want that for my kids. And like I said, I grew up very poor, and my dad's house, it didn't have heating and air. We had a wood stove, and you'd have to get up in the morning and build a fire in order to have heat. And I didn't want to take my two young children back to the house where they would have to sleep with an electric heater just to keep them warm. It was so
Yeah,
much that it sounds so stupid, but I lived in a house where I had electric heat and my children had heat all the time. And
it doesn't sound
I can
stupid.
yeah, and so I just didn't want to take them back to that situation, and that would break my daddy's heart, you know what I'm saying, to hear me say that. But because it wasn't his fault. I'm not trying to say, well, it's my dad's fault, because it is,
Right.
but it was just the situation it was. And I wanted better for my kids, you know what I'm saying. But it just, women stay for dumb reasons. You know what I'm saying? We do. And I hate to call it dumb reasons, but there's no reason good enough to stay in that situation. No matter
Yeah.
what you're thinking in your head, you know what I'm saying? There's no reason to stay in that. But at the time, that's how you try to reason it out. You know what I'm saying? But it
Yeah.
really boils down to, most women don't want to leave because they do, even though this person is abusive and ugly and mean, you love them, and you're staying because you still care, for some
You
stupid
got that
reason you
little
do.
glimpse of hope that they'll change. That
Yeah.
little glimpse that they're
Yeah.
gonna change. I know it. They're gonna change.
Well, the thing is too, Holly, is, and I want to paint this picture, because, and this is what women are doing. I just told you, a domestic violence incident can last 30 minutes, 15 minutes. It can be a smack, a hit, a push. But you got to realize, let's just say it's an hour a day. There's 23 other hours that this is somebody that you are intimate with, that you laugh with, that you have jokes with, that you
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of the time. It's just when they're abusive that you're not having fun. So a lot of times women are like, well, I'll overlook that 15-minute ass whipping for the other 20 3 hours or 24 hours,
Yeah.
23 hours and 45 minutes. That's good. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't all bad. We didn't have all bad times, but it was never acceptable.
So if he wouldn't the way he was, do you think you would have ended up still staying? If he wasn't abusing you, would you have still stayed with him, do you think? Or do you think at
No,
some
no,
point
but
you probably would have ended up leaving him
we would have still ended up splitting up because he wasn't a good husband in general. Like
in general?
to do stuff. Yeah, like he was good to a point, but he wasn't a real good husband. But even like Shelly will tell you, I mean, she will tell you this day. Tommy will tell you, even Ronnie will tell you, you wouldn't meet a better person than my ex husband. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was a sweet guy. He was funny, had a wonderful personality, wonderful sense of humor. Yeah, and everybody loved
Wow.
him. But and that's the way a lot of these guys are. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm describing it to you, you think you'd see a monster. If you'd meet him on the street tomorrow
Yeah.
he would make you laugh, you'd get along with him, you'd think he's the best guy you ever met. Okay, so he had a lot of good qualities, but he was selfish and self-centered and had a lot of hobbies and didn't put. He wasn't a family man. So all of those things would have been enough for me to be like, ugh, you know, I
Right.
don't know though. I'm the type of person that I'm not a leaver when it comes to relationships, so I might have still stayed just for the kids to have their dad. But my point would have been if he would ever hit my kids in an abusive way, besides a normal what we in the South call spanking because you did bad.
Yeah.
If he would have hit them harder than a spanking, oh yeah, that would have been the end. I would have been in jail because I wouldn't have let him do that.
Oh yeah. I don't blame you at all. Um, I do want to say before we go, I do want to remind y'all again, and again, Bridget will link the number for you to call. That again, if you or someone you know is going through domestic violence, please tell somebody, reach out for help, call the National Domestic Hotline number. It is 1-872-33. And I want to thank Bridget for opening up and sharing her story with all of us, because you never know what somebody is going through. Somebody could just be scrolling on YouTube and see domestic violence and they're going through it at that moment, and watch our podcast and see, hey, she was physically and mentally abused, and look at her today. Because again, I've never experienced it, and it breaks my heart to know my best friend went through that. It makes me cringe. It literally breaks my heart, because I don't understand why it happens. I'll never understand, and we probably never will know why they do that. But
Hmm.
I think you are very brave, and I love you to pieces. You are for sure a role model. You are strong, and you are one of the most amazing people I have met in my 44 years living. And
Well,
for you to
thank
have,
you.
you are welcome. For you to have endured what you have and to come out on top the way you are now, it says a lot, and it shows everybody, look, I went through hell and fought my way out, and I come out on top, because you can. You don't let this be your crutch. Don't let it hold you down. Make something out of yourself. Get away, and you just keep climbing up top, because it's only going up from there once you leave.
Yeah. Don't believe the negative things that they tell you. Don't believe the ugly, comments that they make. You are worth it. You will be loved again. You will survive, and they may threaten you, but you can get protection afterwards. Don't think that they're going to make your
Yep.
life hell and kill you and come after you and da da da. There'll be limits to what they can do, and just don't be afraid to tell somebody. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, make sure to tell somebody. But we hope y'all have enjoyed this special episode. Um, Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. And Bridget, you got anything you want to say before we go?
Just be strong, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody going through this, and listen, our next podcast is going to be a lot lighter than this because as much as I enjoy telling this story and helping other people, I like the fun shows too.
Yeah. It's our laughter
Yeah,
is
I do.
the best medicine, as they always say, is
It
the
most
best
of
medicine. Well, y'all, again, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. We really hope that it touched somebody, helped somebody, and just remember if you are going through this, there is help and you can leave and you can do it. Just stay strong and you got it. So on that note,
Yep.
y'all have a good night. And oh,
Yep. Love
I thought you was
y'all.
gonna say something.
Oh, I know. I did mean earlier to say that I wanted to kind of tell my husband now that I love him and that I thank him for being there for me and for saving me, and helping me through some of the hard times in my life that I went through with all of this.
Oh, you need to give him a little
Yeah.
heart. Give Mr. Ronnie a heart.
I love you,
Oh,
babe. But yeah, yes, y'all have fun. We love y'all. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more shows like this. And y'all, last but not least, we have shows that we're trying to do on confessions and Ask Bridget and Holly. They're two different series. So if you have a confession or you want to ask us a question about this topic or any other topic, email us at bridgetandholly@gmail.com. And we're trying to build up some shows for that. But anyhow, we love you guys.
love y'all. Bye.
Ah.